Okay. So, all right, real quick, let's get going. Yeah, short introduction. Thanks to Cover Genius, the company where I happen to work for beer and pizza, as always. Call for speakers. Nope, not presenting. Sorry. Don't know why, but I feel like I haven't done this in forever. Um, let's just try again. All right, finally. Oh dear. Okay. So as I said, thank you to Cover Genius. Call for speakers. This is a QR code. What is the QR code for? It's for the PHP Australia Slack. So please, if you're not already there, scan it, join it. It's a free, free open Slack for any PHP developers in Australia. And once there, you can chat to me about doing a talk, or you can also chat to me during the break. Next meetup. So next meetup will likely happen in June. I think there's, Queen's birthday as always, so probably a couple of weeks away from that. Scheduled. Yep. King. Oh yeah, that's true. We have a king, not a queen. Forget sometimes. King's birthday. Yep. So tonight we got two talks. We got Daniel, just over there making his last preparations. So he'll be discussing Laravel model factories, and then we got Jamie demoing the new Laravel Cloud. I think both of these are repeat speakers who've done really good talks before, so should be good. Community announcements. So not really that much. We're kind of on track for bi-monthly events this year, so we've already done one. I think that's right. We've done one in February. So we're doing one now in April. Next one's in June, and then hopefully two more. Which is why, yeah, if you're keen to do a talk, yeah, please let me know. The more speakers, the better. As you may or may not know, yeah, we're trying to move away from meetup.com. It's a little bit of a hassle, but in any case, it's a necessary thing. So this QR code, I think, is for this eventy link. I actually don't remember, but I think that's what it's for. So in the future, we'll be using this new website called Eventy. I think it's from Eventbrite, can't remember, but it's a website and it works, so that's good. Apart from that, if anybody here is interested in front-end development, so the front-enders meetup, the next one is happening in May, I think May 4th or May 6th, I can't remember. Start of May, it's going to be right here as well, so same location. Yeah, you can join if you like. You can join the front-end meetup group there. It's called Front-End Sydney Meetup. Yeah, and that's it. So our first speaker, Daniel, thank you very much. I hope this works. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you. All right, please bear with me for a moment. Am I audible? Is this good? Great. Should I be here?
Yeah, let me do that. Actually, it's just to hit this button.
Great. Yeah. All right. Okay. So tonight I'm going to talk to you about factories in Laravel. This is something that I've been learning a bit more about recently as we get better at testing. And I thought that I would share a bit about what I'd learned. Laravel's factory helpers have a lot of stuff you can do with them to make it easier to create objects. So really the focus of what I'm going to go over tonight, I'm going to cover a little bit of the basics of factories, but I'm really going to focus on their abilities to create kind of related graphs of objects, because that's like the hardest thing to do when you're setting up tests, is just connect everything up in the way it needs to be. Yeah, so why am I doing this? Tests are important. Making them easy to write encourages you to write them. Making them easy to read helps you keep them and not feel like, what is this for? What does it do? Object graphs, that can be tedious. And maybe you just haven't used factories before, and this is a little way in for you, hopefully. So that looks like a long list now that I look at it, but we're going to cover a few things tonight. So I have made a little blog app to test this with. This is a new format for me. I'm going to kind of do this live, mainly not with slides. We're just going to look at the code and run it and do stuff. So wish me luck. We're going to look at example of a test you might write if you weren't using factories to create all the stuff you need. Then we're going to dive into factories, cover a basic factory. Then I'm going to switch over and just show you a bunch of different seeders that use factories and explain how they work and the features of factories they're using. So we're going to cover a few of the helpers. For, has, and recycle are the bread and butter ones. I'm going to tell you about an approach that you might want to use in some situations, like called the bottom-up approach. And then if we get time, we'll do a little bonus extra helpers. I'll cover this, and then we'll do a little bit of audience participation. So, hello, I'm Daniel. I have spoken here before. I recognize some faces. I'm the co-founder at a company called Pylon. We make software for solar companies. And we build everything on Laravel and Vue. And we have a lot of factories. Do I still have if I tree the factories directory? I don't know if that looks like a lot to you, but it looks like a lot to me. And this is mainly written by one of our developers, Alex, who's really good at testing. And I've been learning how to be that good too. The code for this talk is up on my Codeberg account. I didn't put the full link in there, but you can find it if you want to. Okay, we're about to dive in, and I'm just going to show you how the basic blog thing I built worked. Hands up, who's heard of a blog? Who knows what a blog is? Good, I like to get everyone to this low bar to clear. If you don't know what a blog is, I like to think it means web log, because it's just like a log of stuff you're doing. I don't know if that's true. I just made that up, but it could be. It's true. Hey, all right, cool. It's a very clear word. Great. Hands up who has a blog. Hands up. Hands up who's going to post their blog in the PHP Slack so that I can subscribe to it. All right, never mind. Hands up whose blog runs or ran on PHP. Hey. Mine is not, mine is static, sorry. Oops. Okay, let's swap over to a little blog application. This is what it looks like on the outside. It's a blog, you know what it is. So we've got the title of the blog. It's all Latin. I can't read Latin. If you can tell me what this all means, but we've got a post with an author. We've got some comments. We've got nested comments, so it's going to be important later. We've got this little thing where like, hey, the author replied, so we put a little tag on their comment, and that's going to come into our setups. Am I going too fast? Is that clear to everyone? Everyone following so far? Great. Let's see what this looks like in the back end a little bit. So it's a standard Laravel application. And hopefully this isn't too confusing to anyone. We have a few model classes that represent the entities. We have users, we have posts, comments, and blogs. A blog is just a parent for posts because it makes the factories slightly more interesting than if we were just doing a single blog and we only had posts. And these have relationships defined, as you would do if you're making a Laravel application, and we will be using these later on in our factories. And it's kind of really simple. There's a post controller. When we want to render a post, we load the blog that it belongs to. We load its author. We load the comments. We load comments, the replies of each comment, which helps us render the nested comments. And then we just render a blade file, and that results in what you see here. I'm not going to show you the HTML code because it's boring. So if I wanted to, so I've got some stuff in here already. You'll notice this is being served from my computer. What I'm going to do now is delete my database. And then, all right, we're at a pristine state. Now this is where it could all go wrong. All right. So first thing I'm going to do is just seed some basic users, and then I'm going to take you through the rest of what's going on here. Oh no! You need to create your library first. Thank you. That was a good catch. All right. So I think this one still won't work. Cool. But at least it's not complaining about not having a database. All right. Let's just run a very basic seeder that I have here. So database factories we're going to look at in a sec. Basic post seeder. All right. Whoa. All right, so that's created posts 1. Now this should work. Great. So that created everything that kind of the same as we saw before. All right. What did I say we were going to do first? Yeah, so this is now we've just got some content in the database. I can refer to it. If we wanted to test this application, a test I would like to write is when the author makes a comment, they get this author tag, right? I'm not going to actually have written a very good test for this, but here's what it might look like if you were not using factories. We've got a feature test, manual test. Okay, so this is using pest syntax. So here's our test, right? Rendering a comment by the author with a special class. The class we're looking for is author badge. That's the little purple author name. So basically, we've set up a bunch of stuff and we've gotten the post and we've asserted that that class is in there. Now, in order to do that, we had to create a bunch of stuff. So first thing we do is we create a user, we user create, name, email, password, blog, create, name, creator ID, we use the user's ID that we just created. Post, we create a post because we need a post to have comments on. We think of a title, we link up the author and the blog. We add some content. It's not really important, but we do. Comment, we create a comment. We can't omit these because they're strings in the database, and we can't just, we could set up defaults in other ways, but comment to post. Okay, great. And the important thing is that the commenter ID is the user that we created, who is the creator of the blog. Great. Oh, no, sorry, that's not important. What's important is that they're the author of the post. And then we get that. I'm not going to run the tests because typing is hard, but trust me, I pass. So that's kind of that's how I was writing tests for a long time. And you can sort of put all this stuff into a function, like create me a post with a thing, and that helps. But we can use factories to make this all a bit more syntax sugary. So what is a factory? What is a factory? I'm going to show you a basic factory. Factory, well-known term going back through the history of computer science, is an object that makes other objects. So in Laravel, that's work code. I'm not going to show you the work code. In Laravel, factories go in your database directory, and they live in factories. And each factory is a little class that exists to create other classes. So there's a lot of Laravel's default scaffolding adds a lot of nice commenting so that your ID autocomplete kind of works. But basically, here's all you need for a factory. You need a definition method, and it provides the attributes for a new instance of your model. So this is for the user class. It's giving the user a name using a faker, like a randomizer helper. Create a fake name, create a fake, unique, safe email, create, or using the now helper to just get the now time. And with a password, remember token, that's all neither here nor there. And that allows us to do really basic stuff like this. Okay, so here's how we call a factory. This is that first database seeder I ran. I wanted to create 3 users. So I call user, factory, and this returns an instance of that factory class. I can call the create method. Now this doesn't look a lot different to what I had before, but just wait. So when you create, you can provide some parameters for your model. So I've overridden the random names with non-random names because I wanted to have some stability. But I could also just omit all of that and it would run fine. And I would get just a fully random user. And we'll see fully random users turn up later in future seeders. Okay, that's a very basic factory. Have I lost anyone yet? Does anyone have questions about how that all happened? Cool. I think I should have asked, who's used factories before? Yes, good, lots of people. Good. Okay, let's return to another seeder, basic post seeder. So this is trying to recreate kind of that test example using factories and without any of the really interesting features, right? So I'm going to grab some users that I created already. I mean, you don't have to do this, but I wanted to have fewer users. If they've got a blog already, user, otherwise create one with the blog factory. So I've created factories manually for these classes, or you can get Laravel to do it when you use Artisan to create a new model. And I'm just doing this basically the same as I was before by providing object IDs for all these parameters. Although you notice I'm not providing like the name of the blog, I'm just letting that be randomized. So this looks very similar, right? First thing you do, create a blog, and create a post that belongs to the blog and the author, and create a comment that belongs to the post and the author, and create a reply that belongs to the post and the author, and it's a reply to the previous comment. This seeder is what produced the post that we see here. So here's our blog. The test author was reused, and then we've got our test reader, and we've got our reply. That's what it looks like to create stuff with factories. This is what I kind of refer to as the top-down approach to using factories, where you start at the top by creating like the object that's at the top of your tree. And you create it, and then you create more things that refer back to it. And this is a perfectly fine way to do it. The top-down approach and the bottom-up approach both have their strengths and weaknesses. We'll see the bottom-up approach. You know what? I'll show you now. Why not? So let's say I wanted to create like essentially that same page. I could just do this. I can actually just say, I just want to comment. I don't really care what else it needs in order to make it work. What if I just want to comment for a test? This is actually let's run this. Into my history this time. Okay, post 2 was created by just running comment factory create. What does it contain? Okay, so actually, all right, if you compare the pair, the blog name has changed. Why has the blog name changed? This is a new post. We've got like the Samson character that's turned up. We have a comment, that's cool, by Daryl. I don't know who these are. So this is a bottom-up approach where I have just said, please make me a comment and just make everything else you need. Let me show you just to demonstrate that this is, actually what's going on. Let's run that seeder again. Okay, so post 3 is created. All right, cool. There's my comment, right? I specified that because maybe I wanted to test something particularly pertaining to the contents. But who's this? Who's this? There's a different blog title again. So what has happened is this is a fun part of factories. If I go and look at the comment factory, this is a great aspect of factories where, look, I've got a comment has content, that's fine, it's a fake sentence. Post ID, what post ID does this comment belong to? You can actually just provide another factory that you don't call create on, and Laravel will just go ahead and make a new in this case, post for you. The commenter, so these names that we've been seeing in here, that's just also created afresh.
Sorry, was it? Why are you putting a whole post into the post ID? If you do post factory, you want to create a whole post.
Yeah. It does end up creating a whole post and then essentially inserting its ID into this record that I'm creating. So this is defining the comment. And we're saying the post ID is going to be the ID of whatever post gets created by the factory. I found that confusing too. The other thing I found confusing is that you specify the ID column, not the relationship. So I keep thinking and writing factories like, well, I want the post to be a new post. Actually, the way that Laravel does it for whatever reason is you say, I want the post ID of this comment to be a factory, and Laravel will create that new object and then just kind of plop its ID in here, where you would expect an ID to be. Oh, in my case, yes. All my tables just have ID rather than like table name ID.
How does the insertion of post ID? Because, that sort of association is pretty mismatched. I think would be, we call it PID.
Yeah. I have not tested.
Primary key being, no, the factory represents a whole post.
We've got a bingo back there. Yes. So I have not tested the limits of this magic. This is all convention over configuration stuff that goes on in Laravel, and actually I haven't been game to try and test the boundaries of that. But yes, if your model has a different primary key column, you'd have needed to specify that. And my assumption would be that Laravel would notice that you changed the primary key column and use that definition. If I were adventurous, I would try that right now, but I think that's going to take time and be boring for you. This is all great following your kind of convention over configuration stuff, right? If you start to stray outside the boundaries of convention, you may run into some interesting things, as I did when I was preparing this talk. And I did things that I expected to work and they didn't. So yeah, it happens. So this is what I call the bottom-up approach, right? I want to test a comment. I just ask for a comment and let the entire all the things above it in the tree get created for me. If I don't care about them, then that's great. So that's kind of what I'm talking about with making your tests a bit more concise, because you can just say, you know what, I want to check. Maybe I want to test the rendering of this comment. I want to assert something about its date when it's in the post page. I can very quickly just zero in on that and say, give me a comment. Okay, where was I? We've skipped to 6. Let's go back to, okay, using factories to see the database. Great. I showed you the basic post seeder. So this is doing kind of, this is how I used to use factories when I was like, what's the point of this? Okay, let's get a bit fancier. Close others. Okay, here's setting a post, but kind of using all, not all, some of the features that Laravel's factory magic provides. Okay, that was post 4. Okay, let's have a look at what's in there. Ooh. It's really exciting. Okay, so we've got essentially we've got some more content in here than we had before. That's just so I can show you that I can make a comment with 3 replies or a comment with 2 replies. This is all the same, right? Guest author, that's going to be significant. We'll come back to that later. But it's a blog post with comments. How did that happen? Okay. Let's start at the beginning. This is a top-down approach because that lets me show you how this stuff works. So we get the blog. The first thing I'm going to do is, instead of creating the blog with a creator_ID, I'm going to use the for helper. This is really nice when you have a lot of your like convention over configuration. For reasons to that, but I'm just going to say the creator relationship. Let's use this writer user, right? So instead of providing writer arrow ID creator_ID, I'm just saying the creator relationship associated with writer. Great, and then create with no parameters because I don't care about the title, the content, whatever. Now for can do some fancy things, right? If your relationship is named the same as your the class it's relating to. So for example, a post has a blog, which is a blog. You can just omit the relationship name, it'll work it out. Haven't tested the limits of that either. But that's really nice when you have like for user, for, there's a bunch of times where it's a very straightforward thing and you can reuse it. There's more magic with for. You can suffix it with the name of a relationship. So in this case, my post has a relationship called author. I'm going to say for author. Now, you might think as I did that this will let you provide an existing author. No, this is creating a new factory. So I'm going to say this for author is saying the author of this post is going to be another randomly created user with the name guest author, but I don't care about the rest of their properties. You can create whatever you want. That's where we get this guest author from. So we're no longer reusing an existing user. We're letting Laravel, letting the user factory create a new user. More things. Okay, comments. I'm going to create some comments here. I'm going to say for the post that we have just created, using that that pun on the name of the relationship. If you've got kind of has many relationships, like a comment and its replies, a comment has many replies, you can use has. And there's a neat thing here. You can just kind of pass it another factory. You don't have to create the comments ahead of time. I can tell Laravel to create 3 of these. And that's where we get these 3 comments, these 3 replies to this initial comment. But I still have to specify that all these comments are for the original post, right? So the root comment is for the post. All the reply comments are also for the post. Depends on how your app works. I didn't want to create a full-on graph database in SQLite, so all replies are still associated with the top post, so I can get all the comments and not have to like use CTs or something weird to get nested replies. But what that means is that I have to actually link up this relationship, right? Well, Laravel has a way to help improve that situation too. So if I use recycle instead of has, Laravel will remember that instance and use it whenever it needs an instance of that class in further factory calls within an expression. So I want to create, a new comment. I want it to be for this post, but I'm going to use recycle instead of for, and I'm just going to say has replies to. So just leaning hard into the magic. Laravel is going to recycle this post when it does the equivalent of that. And it's going to create 2 replies. Replies, again, this is using that same magic as for author. It's going to say, oh, okay, has replies. Well, I'm going to look at your replies relationship. I'm going to create some instances of the class that you are related to. And I'm going to whack them in there. So that ends up with this situation here. Now, if I wanted to, you can actually provide some options here. So maybe the only thing we can really sensibly change right now is the comment content. All right. So this will apply to all the comments that I'm creating from this this call. But what you'll see is that these 2 comments down here both got the same text, although they got different users because we didn't specify anything to do with that. Okay, that was a pretty whirlwind tour. How are people doing? Have I lost anyone? Have I taught anyone anything? Has anyone found something new here? All right, that's what this is all about. For has a recycle. We've covered that. Great. We've covered the bottom-up approach. We already did that. Okay. I've got one last thing to show you. This is where it gets kind of tricky, and you kind of start weighing up the benefits, but you can start to use factories as these very rich test harnesses. So here's something that I just came up with based on trying to use this feature. We've used this in our application to do things like fixing up many-to-many relationships. So maybe you want to create something with like a relationship in one way and then also add it to another many-to-many relationship. And if you can't make it work in your head to use Laravel's magic helpers, then you can kind of hack in like this. Okay, so what am I doing? I've got this named blog seeder. I want to create a blog that is named after the user that created it. So maybe this is like a default. Maybe this is just something you want in your tests. I'm not going to justify this. This is for a talk. I want the blog to be named after its creator. The blog to be named after its creator. Let's look at the blog factory. Usually the name of the blog is just some fake words, right? Don't look at these comments, they're spoilers. What I'm going to do is, well, okay, let's say for the first, let's say this is a rule of your domain. Actually, the blogs are always named after their creators. Like maybe that's just how your app works, and you kind of want to reflect that in your tests, just so that your data is a bit more, meaningful. So you can use this special thing. If in a factory you provide a function as an attribute value, which that was exciting. If you provide a function as your attribute value, this function will run. I actually don't remember where it runs. Sorry, but it runs after the other attributes have been filled out. Do not ask me in what order they run if I've got multiple functions here. And please don't make dependencies between them because I'll make your factories very, very spooky. But what this function is going to get is the attributes that I've added to the rest of the model. So in this case, this attributes array is going to contain a creator ID based on the user that I wanted to create magically. And what I'm going to go in here and do is just like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the name, not the email. I'm going to, add their blog. Okay, cool. Looks better. So, fancy, go fancy, and blog seeder. Okay, we're not using that one yet. So, post factory for blog factory create. Okay, so this is kind of bottom up. Actually, I can just get rid of that whole thing. Yeah, look at that. Okay, this is very bottom up. All I want is a post, and I'm going to lean on convention to do the rest for me. Okay, let's run this and see what we get. Named, great. Okay, post 6. Look at that. So now we have a blog that is conventionally named after the user that was generated for the author. Now this is fun. Sorry, this is named after the creator of the blog, but the creator of the post is still a different author. So, or I'm not gonna play with the magic. You can fix this if you wanted to. I'm not going to because this is the middle of the talk. Okay. The other way we can do this is by using some more factory features. So maybe say I don't always want to do this to blogs, but I want to do it sometimes. You can add methods to your factories, just like you can with a model or anything else in Laravel. I'm going to call this factory this method named after creator. Sometimes I want to create a blog that's named after the creator. I'm using for here, so this is working together. So I want a post, but I want to tweak the behavior of its related blog. I'm not tweaking the behavior of the post, but I'm going to kind of reach in and do the blog part of this object tree differently. So I'm just going to say, start a fresh blog factory, whatever, but apply this this tweak to it. And this tweak, if I uncomment it, I don't know why I had this commented out. Didn't really need to be. Okay, let's save that. So this is a method. It's going to return itself. Great. We're using a hook called after creating. This is going to run after the whole kind of factory is done happening. In this case, after the blog has been created, not after the post has been created. And we're going to do essentially the same thing, right? But in this case, we've got an actual instance of a blog to play with. We don't just have an array of adders. So we're going to get the blog's creator using the regular Laravel relationship stuff. And then we're going to update the blog to be, the name, the creator's name's blog, and then I'm going to add a 2 on here so you can see it's different. And then if we run this again, it worked. Okay. What was I up to? 7? Yeah, blog 2. There we go. Okay, so that's another way of doing this, and you can You can do all sorts of shenanigans in this and provide like a nice clean API for your test to use. All right, that is all the content I have for you today, folks. I hope that you learned something. Does anyone have any questions?
Why your ID is likable for terminal dark mode?
Because I haven't worked out how to configure Ghost TTY yet, Ghosty yet. I don't know. I like looking at pros on a page in light mode, but I don't know. I'm actually not that. I don't care that much about my colors, to be honest. I do light mode for most things. Ghosty is default dark mode. It's fine. Yes. Yeah.
Package worked very well with the starting called fresh and it's pretty creative. But I need to say, oh, this mutation happens, I want comments on it, someone pays for it, it's refunded the group. If you get 5, 6, 10 patients there, and you want to that state. So you don't want necessarily the raw factor, you need to play out your steps. What's pattern that you would use for that if you factory that specifically mimics that end state, set it up just like that, or would you still start with those initial factories and run through those things to get to that actual access? That's question.
So I don't know if we've got anyone listening, and for the benefit of those online, the question, if I can summarize it, was, if you have a complicated object graph that and you want to test its behavior, that it's set up in a very specific state, right? With some history, you've done some operations, you've gotten everything into a certain place. It sounds like you might be testing a regression, although it could be that you've just got a complicated set of features. And we do have that at work. And the question is, what's the pattern that you would use? What should you create a factory that sets up that whole state, or do you just have to do it manually, essentially? The answer is I would do it manually, because unless you're doing all that setup a lot of different times, I wouldn't like if this is the kind of states that you set up in lots of different tests, then yes, it starts to become worth pulling it out to somewhere that's reusable. But if you are setting up something that's very bespoke to that one test, then I would probably just do it manually. If hopefully you can use the features that are already in your app to say, okay, I'm going to factory up a really basic object, and then I'm going to call like 5 use cases on it, and hopefully that gets you into the state you need to be in, because that is what happens in the controller 1 or use case 1 happens, controller 2 happens, controller 3 happens. But look, we're not as good at testing that kind of thing as we should be, because it's really hard. It's really tedious, and it's really difficult to then understand what you're doing at the very end after all that stuff has happened. But yeah, I don't think it's a good answer. I don't think factories necessarily help you with that. They might help you put all that logic somewhere central. They might help you reuse it, but I don't think they're going to make it easier to write that kind of complicated setup. You had a second question. Does anyone else have a question first? Okay, go.
So we're obviously in a scenario where we've got in order to maintain a clean resetting database that is fine, and we've got our whole bunch of different things. Is there any possibility of going when you can identify this test? Instead of having to run that, this feature says factory. Don't need to do it.
Yeah, I wish. Sorry, the question was, is there a way to improve the speed of tests when you have lots of complicated object graph setups? You've got a featured test suite that takes a long time. It's doing a lot of database setups and teardowns. Could you identify that maybe there's an object graph that you can reuse? I've not seen anything that's automated. I imagine such a thing would be difficult to write. Has anyone else?
Yeah, we have a guy who's unfortunately sick, but he's been working on this kind of stuff. And I think the TLDR is that try and see as little as possible data and rather create it on the fly. Because it's sort of created, you create a transaction, it never gets saved to disk. It's much quicker. So the more complex your data is, the more data you're seeing, the slower you're kind of doing everything. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I feel like the ultimate answer is like make sure your app works with SQLite and use an in-memory database for testing, but that's not going to work for everyone.
It will be in memory so long as you see it. But you can use factories only during the tests, right? Because then everything is in memory when you're running.
Right.
You're in a transaction.
Yeah, we That was a good suggestion for anyone online. Run your APM, your performance analysis on your test suite, not just on your prod app. Yeah. Okay. That's all I've got for you. Thank you, everyone.
All right, we'll take a really quick break. Yeah, really quick 5-minute break. So grab some more beer and pizza, and then we'll have our second and last talk. Really quick break. And then you can just read the notes, yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Gotta grab some food. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. Shall I use the mic?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yo, yo. Awesome. Cool. So this is my first time talking at this, so it's pretty exciting. Thanks. My name is Jamie Connor. I've been using Laravel for quite a few years. I've been gone to a few conferences and stuff, Laracons in Sydney in America. Yeah, it's a big passionate user of it, but never actually commercially worked in it. But I've got quite a few projects that I do, some sites on hiking, a lot of music and radio things. So yeah, we've got a QR code that's not showing up, but if you go to jamieconnor.com, you can see some of my work there. So today I'm talking to you guys about Laravel Cloud. Has anyone seen any of the Laracon talks on this, or anyone used it? Sweet. Cool. So Laravel Cloud is pretty much an extension of Laravel Forge, but more for a complete hosting solution for websites. As it says on the website, Laravel Cloud is a complete hosting solution that looks after your server instances, databases, caching, storage, and security, all with auto scaling and one-click installs. So I'll break this down a little bit more so that people can understand what all these different parts are. First of all, just to say what Laravel Forge is. Laravel Forge is like a deployment system that allows you to deploy Laravel and WordPress and lots of different applications through to servers. It's what made Laravel a lot of money, actually, and it's become really successful. You can deploy to a lot of different servers now and a lot of different sites for a pretty affordable price. But for larger businesses, you want to start stepping up and looking at larger solutions, and this is where Laravel Cloud comes in. So let me break down what the different parts are. Hold up. Hopefully this doesn't break it. Cool. Right. Just lost my mouse there. Sorry, guys. Nope, not that one. Huh. Okay, sorry, we've actually just lost the screen mirroring here. Yeah, weird. Extend display. Oh man, this is typical. Hold up. I didn't think this would be me. Okay. Well, my mouse just doesn't seem to be going over there, and that one, like I don't even know what that one is because I've got one on my screen, so that could work. Yep. Sorry for any. Oh, look at that on here.
That's weird. Oh, here we go.
Cool. Sorry to anyone that's watching online.
Resync it, let's say.
Cool. Okay, so cool. We'll get that guy back over to this window. Apologies. So let's go back here. So let's break down what all these different parts are here that make up Laravel Cloud. We'll start off with the server instances. So an instance, if you're familiar with cloud serving, is a sort of like a CPU. It's a server. You've got it's what you plug your memory into. It's what you plug your hard drives into. It's got your motherboard. It's your computer, right? So that's your server instance. That's one part of Laravel Cloud. Then you've got your database, which can, in this case, can be Postgres or can be MySQL. Or you could use something, you could use an outside resource as well. But the idea here is trying to keep things within the cloud because that's where you get the security. But we'll get to that but in a second. Okay, maybe we're just going to try to do this just mirroring the screens here because I think we might just get a smoother smoother situation. So okay. Cool. Okay, so so we've got a database is there, then we've got our cache. So in Laravel, a lot of people will be using Elastic Cache, or they'll be using Redis, or a lot of things just to speed up database queries. So it'll cache a lot of these queries, so it'll happen a lot faster. So Laravel Cloud looks after this as part of its solution. It's also got buckets, which is used for storage. So that's like S3 buckets, that style thing, but it's actually being hosted on Cloudflare, and it's pretty much just got infinite storage. So yeah, no worries about running out there. And then it's also got security, which sort of wraps up the whole situation. The security is pretty simple. It's using DDoS, and it's got edge caching, so it's able to handle really heavy loads in case of malware, in case of people trying to bomb your site. I'm pretty sure they'll also have a hot list of blocked, known vicious attackers with updated lists pretty regularly. So those are pretty much the main components that make up Laravel Cloud. So I'm going to quickly talk to you about what auto scaling is, which is quite an important part of Laravel Cloud. Back before everything moved to the cloud, things were more done in vertical scaling, which means your server's starting to get under heavy load. Let's add some more hard drive. Let's add some more memory. Let's just make this computer stronger, or graphics are going slower, so we're going to put in more GPU, that sort of a thing. And you just make the computers bigger and bigger and bigger. But these days, now that things have moved to the cloud, people more think about horizontal scaling. And that's where you pretty much just have a lot of the same units repeated, and then you distribute the load between all of those different machines. So even if you go to like a Google warehouse, which manages search for, across the whole world, it's no longer supercomputers that handle these things. It's just a whole lot of really small computers, some of them running just off 9-volt batteries, and they're just repeated many, 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 many times. And they will handle all of the search load. So it distributes the load across multiple machines. So the auto scaling that's done on Laravel is mostly conceptually horizontal scaling. So yeah, it's something which used to be quite confusing, but these days it's been made really simple. So why was Laravel Cloud created? I've heard Taylor talking about this, and he was talking about how he wanted to make Laravel a lot more accessible to people who didn't necessarily have Macs, didn't necessarily come from Unix or from command line or server management. They wanted people to really focus on development, the same way that people did when they first got into WordPress. And it was, like make people being able to make websites really simply and be able to upload them without having to know about server knowledge. And he really saw a gap in the market there. The thing is I think he was wanting to make it really, really cheap and really, really affordable. But now that it's been released, it does actually have a bit of cost to it. But compared to if you actually look at what service it's being provided, it's pretty reasonable. But I do think that it takes a lot of the stress off the medium-sized servers to high-end servers. That wouldn't have been accessible to a lot of companies before this. So yeah, it does make complex DevOps situations a lot easier. a lot of AWS stuff, you really would have to go and do some certifications to know how to handle auto scaling, how to handle serverless databases, how to distribute databases around the world. I mean, if you think about databases, even auto-scaling databases, it's really confusing because if you've got one person writing to a database in the United States and you've got somebody writing to a database in Indonesia, and they both decide to change the same blog post at the same time, you know, how do you know how to bring those things together? You know, you really need to like put a lock on one, or you know, like, or just say, okay, nobody can, yeah, like a lock, or else you either need to say, you all can read from these places, but this is the only place that you write to. And then if the writing gets under too much load, you need to figure out like, okay, well, if you're writing to this part of the database, you talk to this one. If you're writing to this part of the database, you talk to this one. So it gets really confusing, especially with things like databases. But with Laravel Cloud, it does become a one-click solution. And yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, you've got to have some pretty serious load to need this sort of stuff, but it's nice to have that option, you know, like, yeah, I mean, especially if you're like running a startup, for example, and all of a sudden, you know, you put on Hacker News or TLDR, or, you know, Elon Musk tweets about you, and all of a sudden you've got like 40 times load and overnight. If you've got something on Laravel Cloud, it'll totally be able to handle it. It'll just be like, oh, sweet, you're getting lots of load. We'll spin up an extra instance. We'll spin up your more serverless databases. We'll be able to handle the load and make things be able to handle the load and provide the content to people. So I'll step you guys through how it's actually looking. I have recently set up. I just ran Laravel new PHP demo. Hold on, let me make that a little bit bigger. So I just ran Laravel new PHP demo, and it spun up one of their new templates, which comes with Laravel 12. I can show you quickly how that looks for anyone that's interested. This new starter kits, you select what type of front-end system you want to run, what type of authentication you want to use, what type of testing you want to use, and then it just spins it out. The weird thing is it actually gets this is a bit of a side thing, but I think it's an important thing about Laravel 12, so I'll take this opportunity to tell you guys about it. They actually grab a template from GitHub, which is separate from all the other templates. So they have a boilerplate that's made up specifically for your combination of setup, and it will generate a site and pull that from GitHub. You could potentially go and grab that GitHub repository directly, and it's called something like Laravel View boilerplate or something like that, and you could just pull that straight into your project. But what this does is it just goes in and sets up your new site with all of the authentication with the front-end system. So back to where we were. So I've now created my my project. I can change into the directory. This is actually one that I created yesterday. And everything's installed. I pushed it up to GitHub yesterday, and now I will log into Laravel Cloud. And you log in, initially you log in with GitHub, which is, let me just delete this so that we can start again, sorry. Yeah. Sweet as. So we're going to create ourselves a new application here off this new Laravel template that we set up. So it's a pretty simple front-end system that's been made. The whole thing's still in development. In fact, they only added Laravel 12 last week. But I will add in a new application here. And I can show you how fast it is and what all the different components are. So here's my GitHub account that I logged in with. and we will pipe in the demo which I created. We can select a zone. Unfortunately, Sydney's not in here. It's got London, Frankfurt, Ohio, and Singapore. So we'll go for Singapore. But remember that since this thing is actually distributed through cloud networks, it doesn't really matter where our central place is. It's going to be our CDN and our edge caching will mean that it's available in all corners of the world. So this is our sort of configuration area, which comes up when we first select the site that we want to build. I'll step you through the different parts. We've got network settings, which is pretty locked in stuff, but it's pretty much just saying that it's got the DDoS in there and the CDN things in there. We've got our domain names where we can click on the domain. Oops, that's the domain that won't be hosted yet. Okay. So we've got a custom domain which has already been assigned to us, but we can add in something here like PHP Sydney. Hopefully that one's, oh yeah, and then we click save. So as part of the sandbox, which is the free plan, you can have anything Laravel.cloud, but if you are paying the production account, which is $20 a month, you can add in your custom domains here. Make that a little bit bigger. So we've now added in our custom domain for Laravel.cloud. We'll go back to our general settings. Our environment settings, just showing you what else we've got here. We've got the ability to choose what type of instance that we're going to be running here. On the sandbox plan, we can choose any flex-sized CPU. They got to Flex 8, which is 8 CPUs, 8 gigabytes of RAM. We're just going to run the micro sort of instance here because we're not paying for anything, we're not going to be getting many hits tonight. So if you are part of the production plan, you can actually have a pro instance here. The good thing about these flex instances are they'll spin up and go faster if the load is needed, but they'll spin down if there's not much load that's needed. If it's a pro machine, they'll be spinning up the whole time. They will cost more to run, but they'll also be a lot faster for any sort of load that comes in. If you've got a server that requires the load, it's definitely worth getting something like that. But on that note, with a lot of the services that are provided on Laravel Cloud, you pay for all the services by usage. So if you're not going to be using anything, if you're a service which goes down by night, a lot of people won't be using your site, that regularly, you can turn on hibernation mode. And hibernation mode has a couple of different response times, but what it does, it just spins down your machine so that when people come back to your site, it'll start it up again. If you're running you can only do this on Flex instances. You can't do this on the Pro instances, but on the Flex instances, if they're hibernating, they will kick off and you won't have to be paying any server load. It'll take about 10 seconds to start back up, and then you'll be back on board. There's a few other things here. You can have background processes just for running your queue workers. You can have inertia SSR stuff running. It's just got the usual Laravel setup stuff. So it's all available through the control panel here. So we will save our instance work here. For the databases, I'll show you how to set up a database here. The demo that I have doesn't actually use any of the databases, but this is important. For me personally, my gosh. Is this again? Sorry, dudes. Yeah, so how did that go? Nope. Hey, Max, I might need a hand here. No, I can't stop the presentation because I can't see it on here. Oh yeah, nice. Oh, we went for a little bit longer that time. Let's see if we can make it to the end.
The screen options come up, or
I was just doing screen mirroring before just because I thought it might be a little bit more consistent. Entire screen, start mirroring. Should we stop presenting and start again?
yeah, it just takes a sec.
Okay. You pressed it 5 times. Now it's going to It's like my dad when he uses the computer.
When they say plug everything, you don't do it again.
When you're trying to cross the road and you press the cross button like 12 times. Surely it makes it faster.
That's interesting. That is definitely interesting. Well, what you can do is you can join by the link. That'll definitely work.
Is that using the AirDrop, the Apple thing?
No, if you go to a browser.
Browser?
Yeah, just Chrome is fine.
And then window?
Yeah, just give me a new window.
A new window?
Yeah.
Will that work?
Yeah, sure. I can use it.
Yep.
It's
So I'll quickly tell you guys about the different database options while he's sorting that out. So for me, I've always been using MySQL just because it's used to be the standard that came with Laravel. But I think Taylor's really pushing towards SQLite for the default installs from from Laravel. But when it comes to Laravel Cloud, Postgres is definitely the wiser option because they offer a serverless mode with Postgres. So it means that Hibernation is almost out of the box. Serverless means that you've got it's like microservices. It's like Lambda functions. I don't know if or functional programming where you pretty much just have something which just handles really small requests. And you only pretty much get charged for being used. If you've got MySQL running, it needs to have an instance which is running the whole time to be able to handle the requests in and out. You can still use Hibernation both on MySQL and on Postgres, and the startup time is a lot faster. It's about 300 milliseconds. So that's definitely something which could be worthwhile if you are interested in hosting your database through Laravel Cloud. So yeah, so serverless option for Postgres, MySQL. There's a couple of different options for Postgres. There's one which is a little bit more can handle more load, but yeah, it's pretty fast, that one. So yeah, we've also got the caching system, which is part of Laravel Cloud. I'll just bring that out again. Sorry. Sorry, guys. So hopefully we can get back into that menu quickly. So this is so we've got the cache here. So the caching is pretty much just running Laravel KV store, and it's running Redis, but it's running through one of Laravel's partners, and it's also running through their own hosting service. But it is pretty much just running Redis, and it just provides a solution which is pretty familiar, you just select the size of the cache that you want to be running. It's a flat fee of $7 US per month. And then you just plug that into your system and you get the credentials, plug that into your system, and you're good to go for the cache. And then the bucket storage is very like also, it's just like if you're setting up S3 through Amazon through your Laravel instance, you put in these, you put in the key here after you set up the buckets. It's very, very cheap for the amount of database that you can store, and it's infinite. So it's really good in that regard. So I'm going to show you quickly how quickly it is to deploy the sites here. You can see, I'm sure you guys have already heard, but within under a minute, we're going to have a site here which is going to spin up an instance. It's going to spin up your databases. It's going to spin up your caches and your bucket, all in under 25 seconds normally, which is pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean, if you think about what actually has to happen here with all the provisioning, even with the hibernation of a PHP instance, PHP container, being able to start it up again in under 10 seconds when in hibernation mode is pretty fast. So yeah, it's pretty good. Oh, it's taking longer than expected here. Okay, yeah, it looks like. Yeah. Yeah. Right. Cool. So that looks like, oh yeah, cool. So the site's up and running. So that's pretty good. Let's get another one going now. So we'll just go back to PHP demo, and I've got another branch here. So this is great if you've got dev environments that you need to set up. If people have created a feature branch or something, you can create a new environment here. And again, you can change the settings which are specifically for that environment. So if it's a dev environment, you might be able to have lower requirements for your instances. Save that. And again, we can spin up another one just like that. And the other great thing is with the databases, it's maybe $5 per month for each MySQL environment that you have, but that you can actually have multiple databases running off each environment. So the more environments you have, you do actually start cutting some of the costs. But yeah, so just talking about the costs here, we've got about $20 a month, and you can have about three different projects on there and about 10 different users, or maybe three, yeah, something like that. Maybe between 3 and 10 users. And you've then got about $5 a month for your MySQL plus usage, which goes up pretty quickly. Or if you're using Postgres, you're probably going to be around $7 or $8 a month for a pretty well used site. Your caching will be another $7. Yeah, I mean, your bucket, it just depends how much resources you're using. But I've been looking at other people online. They've been keeping their usage for a pretty heavy usage site under $30 US a month. So it's a lot, but it's not that much. And if you think about how much it would cost to have somebody that does DevOps in your office managing your servers for you, if you can cut out that costing, it saves a lot of money. And also, if you think about how much you're saving through security and through not losing any service, because I don't know about you, but I've been hit with DDoS recently, and I don't know why they targeted my site, but it does happen every now and then. People just testing to see what your server's got, and it knocked my site out for I don't know, about 4 or 5 days, just until I had time to fix it up. And it wouldn't have happened if I was on a service like this. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely see worth in what they're offering. Oh yeah, actually, I'll quickly show you some other things in Laravel Cloud. We've got some metrics here. And this will show us soon. This shows how many requests we're getting. This shows the CPU usage and the memory usage. and you can sort of start to plan, whether you should be looking at setting up auto scaling, and auto scaling is very easy to set up. It does health checks just to see what your server loads are like, and then if it needs to have more instances set up, it will do that. So to do that, you just go into auto scaling inside of your instances. I can't actually do it in the sandbox mode, but you will be able to do it if you're in production. You just check on custom, and then you'll be able to choose some metrics that you use, whether it's memory usage or whether it's server load, on whether more instances are created. So it's very similar to auto scaling that you'll see in Amazon or GCP or Azure. So you can look at the deployments, look through the logs, there's the metrics, there's some commands that you can run, which will run your artisan commands. And there's also some really good stuff when it comes to looking at your costings. So you can go into your usage and see how much usage you've had. You can go into your invoices and see how much it's going to be costing, how much it's cost so far. And yeah, it's pretty good in keeping an eye on these things. You can also set up alerts so that if for some reason you're getting a huge amount of load, you'll be able to, be like, oh great, we need to either turn off the server because we don't want to be paying for this, or we need to turn on the server, and we set up auto scaling so we can handle all that stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much. That was the pricing rundown. Sandbox mode, as I mentioned, you just pay for usage. Production, you pay for $20 US a month plus your usage. So what the future holds here, I can imagine there's going to be better auto scaling, more security options, a lot more third-party integrations, and there's going to be cheaper hosting. There's already a section in there which is called allowances. And there's no allowances at the moment unless you're an early subscriber to the program. But I think there's going to be some more leeways which will be added in there. I think one of the best things for me, because I'm not actually probably going to be at a stage where I need to use Laravel Cloud in the immediate future, is just thinking about how this has been done and also thinking about the progression of where things are going. I watched a talk by John Dixon, which was about how they actually did it, how they deploy all the servers, and they're using Kubernetes, which is understandable. I'm guessing that they've got Kubernetes for Kubernetes as well. So the Kubernetes, what happens just on a single cluster, they have a sort of like an incoming request, and then it puts it onto a queue. The queue then creates the resources, then sends back a message to the master node, and then that master node sends off another thing saying, okay, all the resources have been set up, we're now ready to deploy, and then it puts it live. So the Kubernetes cluster will be creating new containers for each of your different environments and linking them through to your server resources. So I mean, that makes sense for maybe the first 1,000 sites or something, but I can imagine that there's going to be tens, hundreds of thousands of sites here. So the master node's probably going to get overloaded with Kubernetes. So they're probably, I'm guessing they've got like Kubernetes that handle the Kubernetes, or else they do some sort of load distribution to be able to get that through to the different systems. So it's just interesting to think about, and also think about the future of how computing will be going. And how this stuff used to be really confusing, but these days it's just click of a button. Also, something which I thought was interesting was the use of a lot of services that aren't your standard players. So they're not using, I don't think they're using AWS necessarily. They're not using GCP. They're not using Microsoft. I mean, by the looks of things, they're using Cloudflare for their caching system. They're using another partner that I don't actually have the name of, but it's just somebody which looks like they've got a good idea. And again, Taylor's just sort of keeping his eye out for new players that have good ideas. And I think that's something definitely worth supporting. So yeah, that's pretty much the end of the talk. Hey, there's that QR code. Sweet as. Apologies about the tech. Typical, but yeah, that was a lot of fun. So that's Laravel Cloud. My name's Jamie Connor. Cheers. Cool, no worries. Yeah. I don't think they're running their own data centers because that's another game again. You know, they if you go to Cloudflare, their main testimonial on Cloudflare's front page is Taylor talking about his partnership with Cloudflare. So I think they've got a pretty strong relationship there. And he mentions that Cloudflare has really good security, really good edge distribution, and you don't pay for egress traffic. So that makes it really cheap for people at the who people using the storage system. Yeah, and I mean, I think if it was AWS, because I thought it was AWS, there would be really good things for being able to handle billing and handling security. Yeah, I didn't think that because their prices are quite a bit higher than AWS, and I was thinking this sounds like they've gone outside, like for their Laravel's prices. Yeah, so yeah, there could be their margin, but their Postgres seems to be sort of high. Yeah, it could be, there could be a margin, and that's why I'm also thinking that the prices might come down. But then I was also thinking, if they've got Cloudflare for their bucket system and they're running an AWS, how do they create a secure network that's fast? And if they've got they've got the third party handling their caching system, handling their Redis cache, then I don't know, maybe they're just using their product in-house and they've got that running on either Cloudflare or an AWS. But if it's not an AWS, then you've also got to create a private network through to them. Yeah.
That's how we do here. It's pretty simple. It just depends. Like what do you say, the ability store? That's really weird.
Yeah, it is.
That's maybe the most weird one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True, and actually, if you look at the regions that they're offering, it is all in. They all are in AWS regions. So, yeah, I'm not sure if maybe Cloudflare also has private, like still has a lot of their resources happening through AWS there as well. So yeah, it does sound like it's going through AWS. And I mean, I don't know what they're doing for their Kubernetes clusters as well, whether they've got that running through AWS managed systems or whether they've got them running through their own instances, like large instances for handling that as well. Yeah, but I think it's exciting thinking about this stuff. Yeah.
Do you know like what they mean about edge caching as well?
I don't know the difference between CDN and edge. Yeah, edge caching.
Unless they mean like the front end, that would kind of make sense.
Yeah. That one has me stumped. Yeah. Not sure.
Yeah, so I heard of this a couple of months ago, back when Max was presenting about it, and he was saying that it's pretty much like kind of competitive result.
Yeah.
And that's what I've seen like so far, like based on like what they have been presenting. And what I was wondering is that do they also have different runtimes, as in like they have like, because for example, like they have Node.js runtime, but they also have support like Go, Ruby, I think PHP as well, like so like from the community.
But does Vercel have database does the database stuff as well, or do they have? I mean,
Like, support for the database as well.
okay.
It's kind of like the way that I see it, it's like, it's
saying they have PHP as well.
yeah, they have like different runtimes like that they support. So I think the PHP one from Brazil is like community run image or something like that. Yeah, but I was just wondering whether like Laravel Cloud has like or is it like runtime support for like something else?
I think it's more more high ended. Like I think it's a bit more chunky than that, because I think it's made for handling more dynamic requests than where Vercel is a bit more static. Static content. Is that right? Like Vercel does more static content.
I literally thought it was only React, so I'm already
No, it actually has like updates as well, and they also have like database support as well, like on those, and that's the reason why I felt like it's kind of like.
I think Laravel Cloud would just be for Laravel, right? Because it would be really silly if they started doing, let's say, a Symphony, but then it's called Laravel Cloud. They pick the worst possible.
But think about of it that like you can think of it that way as well, because like for Brazil, but they ended up like having support for like different things. Because I remember like 3 years ago,
You know,
I
they
made
named it
like
better.
I made like I made like a Go like serverless function on like Brazil. I posted it like from Brazil's. So I was just wondering whether they also have this kind of support. But like I guess like if someone like starts with like versus Laravel, like they make
Yeah, I don't think there's any plans anytime soon to do that, right? Because they already they want to put a lot of resources into making it like the best Laravel, whatever that means. Then it's gonna be like a long time until they've exhausted what they're using, right? And then it's like okay, do you hire them another 20, 30 people or something else? But yeah, I don't think anytime soon there will be.
Yeah, no, the Laravel's just a quiet inertia, which is and a few other things which are for making their.
That's a good point. So probably what they will do is have support for different setups of Laravel, right? So they might have a setup for like Laravel Vue, Laravel React, Laravel Inertia, right? That's way more likely than having like other runtimes like the JavaScript backend or the Ruby backend. I think that's the logical way to expand it.
Yeah. It's interesting they've got cloud, that they're so confident with the CDN and with the caching of the sites as well, because you could potentially have problems with caching if you're caching sites assuming that the content's not going to be dynamic. Maybe like content could change every minute with some of these things. People posting regular updates on a news site, for example, and then if they've got a generic caching system. But they probably have they probably got something worked out for that monitors whether the caching is updating regularly and then sends through up invalidations through to the edge servers along the way. So yeah, who knows? It would be I think that would be a cool thing for Taylor to do a talk on as well. Like the tech side of it all. But yeah, I could imagine there's a few company secrets in there as well that he's keeping. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thanks for the time with the microphone. Yo.